grab your tea. Today we're talking about some unpopular gluten-free opinions. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing something a little bit cheeky. We're talking about unpopular gluten-free opinions. Unpopular? Nay, even controversial gluten-free opinions. And they're not necessarily mine. I actually asked you guys on Instagram what your unpopular gluten-free opinions were, and ooh-wee, did I get some responses. I feel like maybe that question's not asked enough, so a few people wanted to get some stuff off their chest. In any community, in any niche, there are going to be people that just see things differently. But I just wanted to explore the ideas that people have about living gluten-free, having celiac disease, that might be quite the opposite to your opinions or even my opinions, but we're going to keep this a super non-judgmental zone. Just remember, these are people's opinions. These are not facts. This is not advice on how you should live your life. We're just chatting about some of the interesting and perhaps different opinions that people can have within the same community. So, grab a cup of tea, sit yourselves down, and we'll get right into it. The video idea actually did come from a bit of an incident, a bit of a run-in with some people that thought different to me on Instagram this week. We might dive into it in the end, but I definitely do have my own controversial gluten-free opinions that I will be sharing with you. But let's check out some of the responses that I got on Instagram. This one, actually, I don't think is too unpopular. I feel embarrassed asking if something is gluten-free or cross-contamination. I feel stupid. I actually think a lot of us can relate to that. I personally can relate a lot to that. Sometimes I just feel like, is my personal need worth all of the fuss and maybe all of this embarrassment that I get from being around people? If that's something that you feel like as well, just know that you're super not alone in that. Of course, it's good and encouraged to find out if what you're eating is safe, but it's totally understandable if you're feeling a bit like, I don't want this all to be about me. I don't know how long this person has been gluten-free. Could be forever for all I know, or it could just be a couple of months. But I have found for myself, it has gotten easier, and I have started to care less about what people think about me when I talk about my dietary requirements. That actually might have come from this YouTube channel, to be fair, and me being very open about celiac disease and everything that goes on inside my body. This was one that I teased on Instagram, and I already got some incredibly shocked responses. I actually like the smaller bread. I never used to finish sandwiches because they were too big. And this person is not alone. Oh no. I got several messages about the size of gluten-free bread. So obviously within the gluten-free community, there is a general discomfort and a bit of anger towards the size of bread because it just is a lot smaller than gluten bread. And obviously, there are people that think it should be the same size. There are even movements and merch about how gluten-free bread should be a bigger size. In fact, this is one of the tops from Phil Hates Gluten's merch line, which I think is really neat. And actually really lovely colours, but that's besides the point. There are actually people out there that like the size of gluten-free bread, and that's okay. Do I? I guess I'd probably enjoy it bigger, but hey, it's nice to know that there is actually a community of celiacs out there, or gluten-free people out there, that are enjoying the size of bread that they're getting. And that's for multiple reasons, like they're the only person in the house that eats it, so smaller loaves actually suit them better. Some people said fits in a toaster better, although I would be concerned about the toasters you're using if it can't fit regular sized bread. And not going off because you're eating it quicker. So yeah, they're all very valid reasons. Okay, judgment-free zone. People like what they like, and that's just something people like. The next one is one that I feel, I get it, I hear it. Gluten-free for weight loss, or as a fad, means more gluten-free restaurant menus for us celiacs, and I think that stretches across to more gluten-free products as well. That's one to think about. Obviously, people that don't follow strict gluten-free diets, or perhaps are doing it for no medical reason, fad dieters, can be a little annoying. Can be a little bit annoying to us celiacs that have to follow a gluten-free diet. And that could be for, multiple reasons, like their reaction in restaurants of, oh, it's not that serious, or being able to eat just a little bit of gluten, maybe giving other people the wrong idea about a gluten-free diet. Yeah, can be a bit annoying. But hold on, the amount of them means that there is just more demand for gluten-free products and gluten-free menus at restaurants. In fact, I personally think if it wasn't for gluten-free fads in the 2000s, early 2010s, we wouldn't have a lot of the things that we do now. Obviously, you should, only be eating gluten-free if, someone medical tells you to. I should say that, but, Our next unpopular opinion. I get annoyed when restaurants refuse to serve me because I'm celiac and they can't guarantee no cross-contamination. I want to make my own bad decisions, thank you. Carries on to say sometimes I just lie and say I'm gluten intolerant. You know what? In the gluten-free community, that's kind of a hard thing to admit, People might feel like they'll get a lot of judgment for it. And it's because you deserve it. No, just kidding. This one is such a tricky tightrope to walk because now that I work in hospitality, I actually have to say that line, we can't guarantee there'd be no cross-contamination because there is gluten in the kitchen. And saying that, on the other side of the coin, I regularly eat staff food there because I know the process that goes on and I have seen and decided that it's absolutely safe for me. The chefs all know I have celiac disease and I feel pretty confident if someone came in with celiac disease that they would be able to get a very gluten-free safe meal, but you just still have to say it because there is bread in the kitchen. It's a tricky one, and interestingly, and I want to know what you guys think of this, I have said we can't guarantee no cross-contamination to several celiacs that have come in to eat, and they've all been like, nah, it's fine. And sometimes I think it comes down to the individual on who's actually serving you. For me, I'm all over it. Guy came in with a nut allergy the other day. I made everyone in the freaking whole street know that this man had a nut allergy. I told the other person that was working with me. I told all of the chefs. I wrote it 1,000,000 times. I double-checked. I triple-checked. I quadruple-checked because I understand how serious that is. You know what? I think this all could be solved by only having servers and waitstaff that have allergies serve you because they understand. Okay? Cool. Great. Ooh, here's a controversial one. How New Zealand and Australia say no oats. If 2 out of 10 people react, what about the other 8? Why not eat gluten-free oats, then remove them from your diet if you're still having symptoms? I don't get it. Oh, I almost didn't want to read that one because oats is a touchy subject. So, I'm from New Zealand. I do eat oats. To be honest, I didn't know about the oat rule because I got diagnosed about a week before I moved over here. Didn't even occur to me that oats weren't gluten-free in New Zealand. So when I was eating them, people were like, oh my God, you eat oats. And I was like, what? Yes. It was only through Instagram that I eventually realised that oats were a big no-go in Australia and New Zealand. Some of this could come down to essentially how easy is it for you to get medical help with stuff like this, because there are places in New Zealand and over here that you would really struggle with getting secondary tests and continuing checking your blood levels. In fact, and I'll make a video about this later, I just rung up to book in my yearly annual blood test and I realised that they don't do the one where they recheck your antibody levels, so you don't know if you're doing, a good gluten-free diet, if that makes sense. Which I'm pretty sure they keep doing in New Zealand, although someone might need to correct me on that. So I asked them, are you able to do the one where you check my antibody levels? And they're like, I'm not too sure about that. Usually we only do that once, and then the follow-up blood tests are just checking things like your iron levels, etc, etc. And I was like, it would be good for me to know if my gluten-free diet is going well, especially because I do eat oats. Oats are actually one of the reasons why I want to continue being tested. While I feel fine and my celiac disease symptoms are completely gone, it would just be nice to keep checking in on that, What was the question? Totally forgot what we're talking about. Oats. If you're from New Zealand or Australia, let me know your thoughts on oats. I'm very, very interested to see. I have a whole video on are oats gluten-free, which you can watch if you'd like, but it's a bit old, so forgive me for being a bit awkward in it. Oh, I don't know why I keep doing that. These are all unpopular opinions. May contain never has traces. People are just looking for something to whinge about. Oh, well, look, I said this was a safe place for airing your opinions and we're going to keep it at that. I would just put a wee little warning on that saying that's not necessarily true. There are things that may contain that do have actually traces of. It has been shown. But people's opinions about may contains really do range. This isn't the only one about a may contain actually. We all know that some companies just slap it on just to save their bums. But there are also companies that put it on because there is a real risk, and we don't necessarily have access to that information. You can contact the supplier or the manufacturer and find out for yourself. I personally tend to stay away from may contains, and I also don't advertise may contain products on my Instagram either, just in case. But in terms of whether the individual eats them, it's your body, it's your choice. You do what you want. I don't judge you for it. This next one is not unpopular. It is popular. Sorry for using a double negative. It's worse when things are labeled gluten-free but are not actually celiac safe. I agree, but it does lead on to one of my personal gluten-free unpopular opinions. I actually like the term gluten-friendly. I know. Stop gasping. I know you're shocked. Let me explain. So a while ago, I put on TikTok a video about me saying, if it says gluten-free, it should be celiac safe, like this person says. I think a lot of people agree with that. A lot of people in the celiac community or allergy community agree with that. But there were actually a lot of people on TikTok that didn't agree with it. And while I'm not necessarily one to be swayed by comments, it did give me an interesting perspective. There are probably more people that are gluten intolerant and don't mind eating products that may contain gluten or are gluten-free but perhaps not prepared in the most safe way. And they were getting angry at me because my idea of saying if it's gluten-free, it should mean gluten-free, means that it would reduce their choices. People that didn't mind having like cross-contaminated food or just like the tiniest bit of gluten. I was like, okay, interesting, but then if you still want gluten-free to vaguely mean maybe contains gluten, what term do we have for us? And that's when I saw the light of the term gluten-friendly. I was like, okay, how about this? We keep the term gluten-free, meaning completely no gluten, absolutely celiac safe, but you guys have gluten-friendly. So we know that gluten-friendly is not for us, and you know that it could still mean an option for you. And we can all be happy. I feel like this point I'm trying to get across is very messed up. But what I'm trying to say is I don't mind the term gluten-friendly because I know that it's not meant for me. And it's meant for those people that sort of sit in a less strict gluten-free diet, but still follow a gluten-free diet and don't want their choices taken away. Does that make sense? Okay, quick fire now. I love fruit platters at shared lunches and don't care if they're the only options. Obviously that comes from we're sick of fruit being the only dessert option. Gluten-free custard creams are the only gluten-free alternative that are better than the original. Interesting. I don't know if I can even remember what an original custard cream tastes like, but sound off in the comments if you agree or disagree. I think I like all gluten-free loaves of bread, but I've never found any nice wraps. I partially agree. Definitely don't like all gluten-free bread, but yeah, good wraps are really hard to come by. I like that if I don't like someone's cooking, I can tell them I'll just bring my own food. I won't say who, but I've definitely been happy about that as well in the past. No one should be kicking off at anyone that may contains. It's their body, not yours. Like I was talking about before. Gluten-free bread is just terrible. Next one's a bit interesting. I love the fact that gluten-free baking dishes are easier to clean because gluten is sticky. That's not something I've necessarily noticed, to be honest. Or maybe it is. I'm going to think about that a little bit more. Just because I'm gluten-free doesn't mean I'm vegan, sugar-free, low-carb, and nut-free. Totally fair enough. That's sort of talking more about how all of the free-froms kind of get grouped together for products sometimes, which there are some products I do not mind. But I also know that sometimes taking away certain things like sugar and dairy from things like chocolate isn't my favourite thing to do because I do love sugar and dairy. But you know, those products are there for people that can't have any of them. I won't talk about that one. If something is marked gluten-free on the menu, it should be gluten-free with no cross-contamination. I agree. I secretly like always being the one to choose the restaurant. I agree with this one, but that's also because I have a plethora of restaurants to choose from in London. Perhaps if you are in a small town that only has one safe place to eat, you might feel a little bit bad about that, but you know, swings and roundabouts. Someone really hates char bread. Here's another one. Eating out is not worth the risk of getting glutened. So that's sort of down the other end of the scale of things we're already talking about. We were just talking about how people don't mind throwing caution into the wind a bit. This is the other end of sort of being a little bit wary of eating out at places that you do not know are safe, you don't really have control about. And there is a lot of people like that. Sometimes you don't want help with that, and that's absolutely fine. If you do want help around changing that mindset, there are people that are wonderful, like celiac dietitian Taylor. I'll link her Instagram in the comments below. She focuses on stuff like this and how you can learn to sort of feel a little bit more okay about eating out. Highly recommend her. You should check her out if that's something that you feel like you want to change. Not everyone does, that's fine. But if it is, yeah, check her out. I like opinions on this as well. I find it easier to bake gluten-free than to bake normal. I agree. I think there are certain things that are much easier to bake gluten-free, like cookies and cakes, because you're not working with gluten. There's not really the risk of it becoming stodgy and too chewy because you've overworked the gluten. I do not agree with bread though. Here's another one that I don't think is that unpopular. Sometimes I like to say that celiac disease is an allergy because people take it more seriously. That's just straight facts. And also I don't think you should feel bad about saying that either, because sometimes it just gets the point across more quickly. I say it all the time. If there's people that I do not feel like they need to have the rundown of what celiac disease is and how it affects me, I'll just be like, yep, I have an allergy. And we'll shut down the conversation there because I don't want to talk about it anymore. Speeding through now because I've got to head to karate in 10 minutes. This one cracks me up. Some of the celiac Facebook groups drive me mad. Oh, and the last one is, if there is cross-contamination, it shouldn't be called gluten-free. Gluten-free toasty could be called toasty with gluten-free bread. It hooks back into what we were talking about before. That's all the unpopular opinions I have to share off Instagram, and I want to say thank you to you guys for sharing them and sending it in. I know that sometimes voicing these opinions in some communities, you feel like you're going to get dumped on a bit, but hopefully that won't happen here in the comments, because all you lovely people are well aware that we're all very different and we live in different areas, and different opinions are just bound to happen. I was just considering whether to talk about the thing that made me have the idea for this segment, and I'm a little bit worried because I know there are some hardcore fans, but the reason that I was thinking about unpopular gluten-free opinions was because of the NEMA sensor, which I think we can maybe delve into a little bit more in an entirely separate video. A NEMA sensor, if you haven't heard of it, is a gluten detection device, and it's not one that I would choose to use. A lot of people do choose to use it, and that's absolutely fine. Just not one that I would choose to use for a few reasons. But we're not going to talk about that now. I think that could be its own separate video where we can talk about it in a very kind and see both sides of it manner. I think we can talk about it, but we won't do that here because I've actually got to go to karate now. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully maybe you thought about something a little bit differently, or maybe considered another opinion that you hadn't had before. Yeah, that's pretty much it from me. I'll see you in the next video. Bye. I have knowingly eaten gluten and I don't care. We'll move right on.